The air was thick, heavy with heat, wrapping around me like an unwelcome second skin. The AC had given out hours ago, leaving the house stifling, every breath slow and weighted. Even with the windows cracked open, the summer air outside offered no relief, just more warmth, more stillness, more oppressive heat pressing into every corner of the house. I ran a hand through my damp hair, exhaling, my patience thinning with every passing second. The ice in my drink had melted long ago, the condensation trickling lazily down the glass as I lifted it to my lips, the coolness barely noticeable against the warmth clinging to my skin. Still nothing. My stepson's voice broke the silence, low and rough from the heat. He stood in the doorway, shirtless, a faint sheen of sweat glistening on his collarbone. I glanced at the thermostat, shaking my head. Dead as ever. The repair guy won't be here until tomorrow. A low groan. Fantastic. He stepped further into the room, the old floorboards creaking beneath his weight. The soft hum of a distant fan was the only noise between us, a lazy rhythm that did little to break the tension of the heat pressing in around us. We could go outside, he suggested, running a hand through his already damp hair. Might be a breeze. I let out a dry laugh. Unless you want to sleep on the grass, I don't think that'll help much. He smirked, shifting his weight, arms crossing loosely over his chest. Then what's your plan? Just suffer. I exhaled, rolling my shoulders, the tank top I had thrown on clinging slightly to my skin. Cold showers, I guess. Ice packs. Maybe I'll sleep in front of the fan. He tilted his head slightly, considering. I think I've got a better idea. Something about the way he said it sent a flicker of something unsteady through me, though I kept my face neutral, arching a brow. Oh! A slow smirk. Ever tried an ice bath? I blinked. You're kidding. Not at all. Athletes do it all the time. Works better than AC. I scoffed, shaking my head, but the idea stuck in my mind, the thought of sinking into something cold enough to chase away the heat making my skin tingle in anticipation. You can go first, I said, reaching for the pitcher of water to refill my glass. Tell me if it's actually worth it. Or, he leaned against the counter, eyes glinting with something unreadable, we could just make a challenge out of it. I set the pitcher down, narrowing my eyes. What kind of challenge? Who can last the longest? We fill the tub with ice and water, both get in, and see who taps out first. I stared at him, trying to decide if he was serious. That's ridiculous. What, scared you'll lose? I huffed a laugh, shaking my head. I just think you're underestimating how bad it'll feel. His smirk deepened. So you're saying I'll win? I rolled my eyes, the heat making me irrational enough to actually consider it. Fine. He grinned. Good. Let's make it interesting then. I crossed my arms. How so? He stepped closer, just enough that I could see the playfulness dancing in his eyes, the lazy confidence in the way he moved. Winner gets whatever they want. A slow trickle of ice dripped down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. I swallowed, tilting my chin slightly. And what exactly do you think you'd want? A pause. A smirk. Guess we'll find out. The ice water was unbearable. The second I stepped in, my breath hitched, my skin erupting in a wave of goosebumps. It wasn't just cold, it was sharp, the kind of chill that made every muscle tense instantly, my lungs struggling to adjust to the sudden shock. Across from me, my stepson settled into the tub with a hiss through his teeth, his hands gripping the sides as if steadying himself against the urge to jump out immediately. Told you it was a bad idea, I muttered, already feeling the numbing ache settle into my bones. He let out a low laugh, shaking his head. No backing out now. The minutes crawled by, every inch of my skin stinging from the relentless cold, my breathing shallower, but I wasn't about to lose. Not to him. Still comfortable? I asked through clenched teeth, watching as he stretched his arms behind his head, feigning ease. Getting there, he smirked. You. I exhaled through my nose, determined. I'm fine. The air between us felt thinner now, the heat of the earlier evening completely forgotten in the face of this new kind of tension. His gaze flickered over me, watching, waiting. I could feel my pulse hammering against my ribs, but I refused to look away, to acknowledge the shift happening in the space between us. Another minute passed, then another. The cold was unbearable now, sinking deep into my muscles, making my fingers tremble as I gripped the edge of the tub. My breathing had slowed, my body screaming for warmth, but I wasn't about to let him see me falter first. Then, "Okay, you win," I finally muttered, my body screaming for warmth as I moved to climb out. His smirk deepened. "Told you." I rolled my eyes, grabbing a towel, wrapping it around myself, the contrast between the ice water and the heat of the room sending a shiver up my spine. "Enjoy your victory." He didn't move right away, just watched me, his expression unreadable, the quiet hum of something unspoken hanging between us. Then, "Guess that means I get what I want." A slow inhale, a hesitation. I turned, meeting his gaze, waiting. "And what exactly is that?" I asked, my voice quieter now, the weight of the moment stretching longer than it should have. A pause, a smirk. "Guess we'll find out." I exhaled, rubbing my arms through the towel, my skin still tingling from the cold, from the weight of his gaze. My feet barely touched the floor before I felt his presence shift behind me. The soft creak of the old tiles, the way the steam clung to the air despite the ice in the water. I turned slightly, just enough to see the flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "That was brutal," I muttered, half laughing to ease the tension curling between us. He smirked. "You survived." "Barely." The room felt smaller now, the lingering warmth from the earlier heatwave still present, though no longer the kind of discomfort we had been trying to escape. This was something else. Something neither of us seemed willing to name. He shifted closer, not enough to cross any obvious line, but just enough that I noticed, just enough that the hum of something between us felt undeniable. My fingers flexed against the towel wrapped around me, the fabric still damp, cool against my overheated skin. "You're still shaking," he murmured. I let out a slow breath, rolling my shoulders. "It's nothing, just the cold." A beat of silence. Then, "Come here." The words landed heavier than they should have. My pulse skipped, a flicker of hesitation coursing through me before I moved, just slightly, just enough to acknowledge that neither of us were ready to break whatever had settled between us. His smirk softened into something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something careful. The air felt too thick, too warm now, even with the ice water still in the tub behind us. "You still think this was a bad idea?" he asked, voice lower now. I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the edge of my towel. "I think we're going to regret this." Another slow inhale. Another pause that stretched too long. "Maybe." A flicker of something in his gaze, something unreadable, something waiting. I should have moved away. Should have laughed it off, should have shaken off whatever had settled in the space between us. But I didn't. Instead, I let the silence stretch a little longer. And I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close.